The training hall lights dimmed to a blood-red glow as the doors sealed with a metallic thrum. Cadets of every shape and species pressed themselves against the viewing rail, their eyes wide, their voices hushed with fear. A shadow moved behind the reinforced glass. A low, resonant growl rippled through the hall, the kind you felt more in your bones than your ears. Instructor Varlon raised his voice. "Cadets, this creature has nullified plasma, shredded graviton rounds, and survived a point-blank antimatter flash. No weapon can harm it. No species here is to open fire." Every alien stiffened. Except the human. Elias Trent squinted at the null beast, which slowly turned its monstrous head and locked onto him with impossible focus. The containment field flickered. The creature lunged. And before anyone could scream, Elias raised his weapon and pulled the trigger. 3 hours earlier, Elias stood at Dock 6B with a bag slung over his shoulder and sweat collecting at his collar. The triple suns of Virexus Prime were as unforgiving as the rumors, and the station air smelled faintly of disinfectant, ozone, and warm plastic. Around him, alien cadets streamed out of transport shuttles in waves, tall, iridescent beings with narrow jaws and cybernetic limbs, scaled quadrupeds muttering in layered cliques. Even a few gas-based entities that drifted in sealed containers. None of them looked twice at each other. But every pair of eyes lingered on him. Elias kept his head down and followed the glowing floor lines toward registration. He passed a set of mirrored windows and glimpsed his reflection. Dark eyes, buzzed hair, tension in his jaw he hadn't noticed until now. His name had made the acceptance roster by what he assumed was a clerical miracle or a test. Either way, he wasn't about to give them a reason to doubt him. Not again. A voice chittered behind him. "Human, you're in the wrong intake group." Elias turned to see a Draval cadet, sleek, four-eyed, armored in natural plates, standing rigid with a set of scroll-like appendages rolled behind its back. "Intake 7 is for species cleared after incident review. You walk among us early." He nodded calmly. "Cleared last month. Trent, Elias, Earthborn." The Draval didn't reply. It simply took a half-step back, as if reassessing the air between them. He was used to that. Inside the Academy's atrium, light from the Sun Trio filtered through crystalline domes, sending shifting rainbows across the floor. Holograms floated above registration desks, cycling languages until they found your own. Elias approached his terminal. The machine chirped. "Welcome, human, Elias Trent. Species integration level 3. Caution. Special handling protocols active." "Reassuring," Elias muttered. The machine printed a band and assigned him to Cohort 47. Cohort 47's orientation chamber was enormous, wide enough to park a battleship, cold enough to see your breath. Rows of cadets stood in organized formations, sorted by species. Elias stood alone. Instructor Varlon entered from the side tunnel, flanked by 2 aides and an auto-drone buzzing with telemetry equipment. His scales were a shifting blue-gray, armor-like, and shimmered faintly as he moved. "You are the first to survive your selection cycle," Varlon announced, "which means the Academy deems you useful, or dangerous, or both." His eyes landed briefly on Elias. No reaction, just a note. "You will train in universal combat doctrine, but first, you must understand why some threats cannot be met with force." The room darkened. A holoscreen unfolded in mid-air. It showed a creature unlike anything Elias had seen, not even in the disaster files. Massive, armored in deep layers of pulsating plates, limbs that could reconfigure in real time. Its head lacked a mouth but held 2 black, endless eyes. "The Morvath Null Beast," Varlon said, "engineered. Not by us. Its origin is not relevant here. What matters is that it adapts. Every energy type known to the Galactic Registry, plasma, graviton, antimatter, positron spike, rendered ineffective." Cadets murmured. Even some instructors looked uneasy. Varlon continued. "We keep one contained here, for demonstration only. Its threat profile is not theoretical. You will observe it. You will not engage." He pointed to the chamber doors. "This is your first test. Follow orders." Elias had trained on 20 different weapons systems before arriving. He'd qualified for close combat, zero-G operations, and emergency field medicine. But standing behind the containment rail now, with the null beast behind reinforced glass, all that training evaporated. The room vibrated as the creature stepped forward. Every cadet leaned back. A few whimpered. The rail vibrated as the kinetic field adjusted to the creature's pressure waves. But Elias didn't move. Because the beast had already locked onto him, its eyes, black and glassy, tracked his every breath. He held still. It wasn't reacting to Varlon's voice. It wasn't posturing toward the closest cadets. It was focused on him like a memory surfacing from somewhere deep. The containment field buzzed softly. Then something changed. A shift in the pattern across the creature's armor, slight, almost imperceptible. The plates shimmered, then dimmed in a specific rhythm. Elias frowned. The rhythm matched his breathing. The beast exhaled. So did he. He blinked. Once. It did not. Then the lights above flickered. The field shimmered. "Stabilizer drop," someone shouted. "Compensators aren't catching." A red alert blinked across the wall display. "Remain calm," Varlon barked. "Do not engage. I repeat." The null beast reared back and slammed into the field. Sparks erupted along its edge. Screams. Cadets scrambled away from the rail. Elias didn't move. The flicker came again, this time strong enough to knock the lighting offline for half a second. When they returned, the null beast was inches from the barrier. Its plates had changed color. Not fully. Just a stripe along its chest, a subtle sheen of violet layered over black. No one else seemed to notice. But Elias did. His weapon was a training model. Compressed phase pulse. No lethal charge. No armor penetration. A toy. He raised it anyway. "Travers, stand down!" Varlon shouted. But Elias wasn't aiming out of panic. He had seen something, a pattern that didn't belong. The ripple of color in the beast's plating wasn't defensive. It was signaling. The null beast tensed. The containment field sparked. Elias fired. A single pulse. The light hit the creature's chest, struck the violet shimmer, and instead of dispersing, it stuck. For a half second, the blast halo held there like it had been caught. The null beast stumbled backward. Then something stranger happened. It paused. The plates across its body flared outward in a wave, not defensive, not aggressive. Responsive. The room fell silent. No one screamed now, no one moved. The creature emitted a low, tonal vibration that pulsed into the floor, through the walls, and into the bones of everyone present. Instructor Varlon stepped forward, weapon drawn. "Security, initiate lockdown. Lock this facility down now." The null beast didn't attack. It took a step forward, toward Elias. Then another. The instructors moved between it and the rail, but it didn't even glance at them. It simply tracked Elias with unnerving calm. The field rebooted. Energy barriers flared to life. The creature stopped a hair's breadth from the boundary, but it never broke eye contact. Elias lowered his weapon, slowly. The null beast lowered its head. In the stunned silence, Varlon's voice cracked the air like a whip. "Trent, you are under detainment for violation of engagement protocol and biological provocation." Guards surrounded him. He didn't resist. But as he was led away, Elias looked back one last time. The null beast had not moved. It watched him leave. Not with rage. Not with confusion. But with a quiet certainty like it had been waiting for him. And now that it had found him, it wasn't letting go. The holding cell wasn't designed for comfort or clarity. The walls shifted hue every few minutes, cycling through a color scale Elias didn't recognize. There was no bed, just a bench molded from the same alloy as the floor. A trickle of cold air hissed from a vent near the ceiling, and for an hour, the only sound was Elias's breathing. Eventually, the door hissed open. Instructor Varlon entered first, followed by 2 security officers and a medical drone. The air shifted tenser, heavier. "You will explain," Varlon said, voice as sharp as ever. Elias sat up straighter. "I saw a change in its armor, a pattern. No one reacted, so I thought." "You thought?" Varlon's voice thundered off the walls. "You disobeyed direct protocol in front of 60 witnesses. You thought a training weapon could achieve what antimatter failed to do?" "I didn't think it would kill it," Elias said. "I thought it wanted me to." The silence that followed was unnatural, not the absence of noise, but the vacuum left when logic abandons a room. "Wanted?" Varlon repeated. "Explain." Elias tried to find the words. "It mimicked me, its breathing, its gaze. And right before it charged, its plating changed." A vertical ripple along its sternum, violet over black, synced to my breathing pattern. I recognized the frequency. The two security officers exchanged glances. The drone beeped, a soft uncertainty. "Instructor," one of them said, "if he's telling the truth." Silence. Varlon's eyes locked back on Elias. "Do you expect us to believe the null beast, a creature without higher cognition, let alone language, chose you?" "I don't expect anything," Elias said, carefully. "But I know what I saw, and I know what it did after I fired." It had moved toward him, not like prey, not like predator, like a machine rebooting toward a known signal. "You're not the first human to break protocol," Varlon muttered, pacing. "But you may be the first to do so in a way we cannot easily classify." Elsewhere, containment alarms still echoed. The null beast had been moved to secondary enclosure Delta, a reinforced vault layered in magneto shell fields and guarded by 36 drones. It didn't resist, didn't flinch. But when it passed the corridor near Elias's cell, it stopped, dead still, and turned. One camera caught it a moment where the beast's entire armored frame shifted orientation, not toward the guards, not toward escape, toward Elias's direction. And then it sat. Legs folded, plates relaxed, gaze pointed at the corridor bulkhead like it could see through the walls. It remained there for 2 hours. Didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't even breathe loudly. The analysts called it unprecedented. Academy Hall 5A was rarely used. Its walls were insulated, its seats arranged in a circular tier like an old council chamber. Today, it was packed. Xenobiologists, military tacticians, 3 data priests from the Argon Congregate, and a dozen instructors sat in silence as the incident replayed on the screen. The key moment, Elias's shot, froze mid-frame. A red circle highlighted the shimmering pulse in the null beast's armor. "There," said Instructor Pila. "That's what the human claims to have seen." A Drellin biologist nodded. "He's not wrong. That shimmer doesn't appear in any prior exposure tests. Not with plasma, not even radiation mesh. It formed before the weapon fired," another added. "And dissipated afterward," said Pila, coinciding exactly with the human's discharge pattern. "Coinciding," muttered one of the Argon priests, "or triggered by?" The room fell quiet. The lead tactician, a grizzled pharynx veteran with augmented eyes, leaned forward. "We've studied null beasts for 80 years. None have ever responded to stimuli with recognition patterns, until now." "Then we're asking the wrong question," said Pila. "It's not what the creature reacted to, it's who." Elias sat in the med bay now, arms crossed as a bioscanner hummed beside him. A medical officer scanned his vitals, clearly unsettled by the data. Pulse rhythm, baseline, but spiking during memory recall. Neural mapping indicates high-stress cognition, but no hallucination patterns. He's telling the truth, or believes it. Elias raised an eyebrow. "That's your way of saying I'm not insane?" The officer didn't answer. A moment later, Varlon returned, a datapad in hand. "You're being released. Under observation." Elias stood, cautiously. "Observation as in monitored classes?" "Observation," Varlon said, "as in escorted movement, restricted sleep cycle, and assigned proximity to the creature." Elias stared at him. "Wait, you want me near it?" "We don't want anything, but the null beast has refused food, shifted posture, and reoriented its position to face your section of the academy for 6 hours. If we move you, it follows. If we shield you, it circles the perimeter. If we play recordings of you..." "Recordings?" "Yes," Varlon snapped. "We tested over 100 sensory probes. It ignored them all, except yours." Elias swallowed. "So now what?" "Now," said Varlon, "you'll go back into containment. Not armed, not unarmed. We'll observe its reaction. And if it tries to communicate..." "It's a beast," Elias reminded him. "You said it wasn't sentient." "We may have been wrong." Containment Room Delta was quieter than the others. No observers, no cadets, just thick steel, sensor drones, and a long central corridor. Elias stepped through the airlock, unarmed, hands at his sides. The null beast waited. As soon as he entered, it stood. A deep resonance filled the room like a tuning fork pressed to bone. The creature's plates shifted, this time in a slow, deliberate pattern. Not threat, not defense. A greeting. Elias exhaled. "Okay," he said, "you've got my attention." The creature took one step forward, then stopped. It lowered its head, and then impossibly it made a sound. A tone, low and harmonic, with a rhythm that pulsed, in sync with Elias's heartbeat. From the observation room, Varlon stared in silence. "Update the logs," he whispered. "This is no longer a containment protocol." Pila glanced at him. "Then what is it?" Varlon didn't answer for a long time. Finally, he said, "It's a relationship." The null beast stood still as a statue, not dormant aware. Its entire body remained aligned with Elias's position, and its head moved with uncanny precision to match even his smallest steps. From the outer observation corridor, nothing else mattered. The galaxy's most unkillable biological weapon was following a human, not attacking. Following. Inside the chamber, Elias took another cautious step. The kinetic field behind him shimmered faintly as the chamber's monitors recorded everything: posture, breath rate, harmonic emissions. The creature didn't flinch. It simply adjusted its stance again, plates folding like petals closing at dusk. "Can I approach?" Elias asked aloud, not to the creature, to the calm embedded in his collar. Silence. "Then, proceed," said Varlon's voice, rough with hesitation. "Slowly." Elias moved forward, counting each footstep. 4 meters. 3. At 2, the null beast made a sound. Not a growl, not a pulse, a harmonic one that bent low, then spiked just above human hearing range. The room's AI flagged it instantly, pattern unrecognized. But Elias did recognize something. It wasn't random. It had rhythm, intent, structure. He'd grown up with musicians. His mother had taught piano. The harmonic the null beast emitted reminded him not of sound, but of timing, a signature, like it was waiting for a response. Elias took a risk. He tapped his chest lightly once, then twice, matching the intervals he'd heard. The creature's head tilted. It repeated the tone. Exactly. And then, without warning, the creature sat again, not in an aggressive crouch, but deliberately, patiently. Elias turned slightly to the observation glass. "I think it's trying to teach me something." From the control room, Pila's voice crackled over comms. "Or it's mimicking you." "Maybe," Elias replied. "But if it is, it's doing it, with purpose." By the next morning, the data logs had been replicated across 6 research stations and flagged by the Intergalactic Bioethics Board. Debate raged. Was the null beast sentient? Responsive? Could its apparent connection to Elias be classified as bonding? Every answer led to more questions. And while the scientists fought, Elias was pulled into a different battle. He was now the Academy's primary experiment. They assigned him to a specialized chamber for observation. His meals were monitored, conversations recorded, and once a day they escorted him under armed guard into the null beast's presence. And each time, the creature greeted him with a new tone. Each tone built on the last. A pattern was forming. "Like a vocabulary," said one of the linguists watching the footage. "It's not mimicking anymore. It's escalating. This is proto-language." "Based on what?" Another scoffed. "Musical intervals?" "Based on him," the first snapped, pointing at Elias. "It's learning through him." Even Varlon couldn't dismiss the facts anymore. What no weapon could trigger, Elias could. What no protocol could reach, Elias had. Day 6 changed everything. Elias had begun taking notes, sketching rough diagrams of the tones and response patterns. He'd even begun humming back the tones, tentative, awkward, but the null beast always responded. Always. Until day 6. That morning, the creature didn't tone, didn't stand. It was curled in the far corner of the chamber, motionless, plates pulled in tight, breathing shallow. Elias paused just inside the barrier. "What's wrong with it?" he asked. No response from the comm. He stepped forward. 1 meter, 2. Still no reaction. Then he noticed the sound, faint, subaudible, a vibration coming from beneath the floor. Elias dropped to one knee and pressed his hand to the plating. A low-frequency thrum, not the null beast's. Something else. "Instructor," Elias said sharply. "What else is powered on down here?" A pause, then a scrambling of voices behind the comm link. "Checking. Stand by." But Elias already knew. "It's being jammed." He looked up. "You're blocking its emissions." Another pause. Then Varlon's voice came through, quiet but unflinching. "We introduced harmonic inhibitors, to see how it would react without access to your signal. You're running interference? For safety. Elias stood. You don't get to call it that while it's suffering. The null beast trembled faintly. One limb stretched, then collapsed again. Elias moved to the barrier wall, slapped it once. Turn it off, now. Negative. I said no. Varlon cut in. This is controlled, temporary. Your welfare is a variable, not a priority. You're hurting it, Elias said. It feels what I feel. Don't you see that? That's the problem, Varlon said coldly. No creature of its kind should be capable of that, which means either we're wrong about the null beast. He trailed off. Or, we're wrong about you. An hour later, the inhibitors were turned off not because of Elias's protests, but because the null beast began to destabilize. Its vitals crashed. Containment sensors failed. An inner layer of armor plates liquefied and began cycling uncontrollably. Scientists screamed over comms. Medics rushed to the control deck. And in the middle of the chaos, the creature emitted a howl, the first real vocalization ever recorded. A brutal, rising arc of noise that cracked one of the chamber's external lenses. Only when Elias returned to the chamber did it stop. And when he touched the barrier, the null beast stood, leaned forward, and pressed its plated brow to the invisible field between them. Every system normalized within 2 seconds. Breathing, heart rate, muscle tension, all returned to baseline. The jam had been killing it. Or, more accurately, separating them had. The next day, a closed council hearing was called. Varlon presented the data. So did Pila. So did 2 researchers from the Galactic Xenopsych Division. All agreed. Something in Elias's presence stabilized the null beast. Nothing else worked. No chemical sedation. No force field cycling. No neural dampeners. Elias wasn't the cause of the creature's aggression. He was the solution to its restraint. A Dreval tactician leaned forward. You're saying we should assign a human to each one? No, Pila said. I'm saying we can't categorize this creature without Elias. Which means? Varlon folded his arms. Which means, whether we like it or not, Elias is now its handler. The new protocol was unprecedented. Elias was no longer monitored. He was authorized. His access to the null beast was formalized. His daily logs were requested by senior instructors. He was moved from cadet barracks to a research tier. He wasn't just tolerated anymore. He was needed. But it came at a cost. Other cadets avoided him like radiation. He caught whispers in corridors. Bio-linked. Genetically responsive. A pet for the monster. One cadet even asked aloud, what happens if it bonds too much? What happens if it turns on the rest of us for him? Elias had no answer. He wasn't sure if anyone did. That night, he returned to the chamber alone. No guards, no drones. Just him. The null beast met him halfway. Its tone this time was low, soft, nearly sad. Elias sat cross-legged in front of it. I don't know what you are, he said, but I don't think you're here to destroy us. The creature tilted its head. But I also don't think this ends here. For the first time, it made a new sound, 3 harmonic bursts in sequence. Elias blinked. He recognized the pattern. 3 bursts. 3 syllables. It was saying something. He tried to repeat it, but his voice cracked. Still, the creature responded again, slower this time, easier to match. And when he echoed it back imperfectly, but clearly the null beast made the closest thing to a bow he'd ever seen. Not submission. Respect. And Elias understood, instinctively, what had just happened. The creature had given him a name. Its name, the null beast's name, or what passed for it, resonated for hours in Elias's mind after their exchange. 3 harmonic pulses, not a word in any human tongue, not a linguistic sound at all, but it meant something. Every time he repeated it, the creature responded. 3 tones, 3 pulses of recognition. In the following days, analysts tried to isolate the meaning. They debated whether the name was a true identifier or a reactive echo, whether the creature had chosen Elias or simply mirrored his presence. But for Elias, the distinction no longer mattered. Because every time he entered the chamber, the creature greeted him. Not as an anomaly, not as a handler, but as something closer to a counterpart. And the Academy had no protocol for that. By week 3, containment procedures had changed across the board. Elias's training schedule was replaced with biocognitive engagement hours. Half of the instructors now observed the sessions silently from the upper decks, their faces tight with disbelief. The other half didn't show up at all. The Morvath null beast no longer showed signs of aggression. Its vitals remained stable. It fed from nutrient solutions administered in Elias's presence, but only then. Left alone, it refused all stimuli. No artificial companion, no auditory replicant, no scent trace. Just Elias. And still, the same question haunted everyone. Why? That's when the Academy brought in the Spectral Inquiry Corps, not soldiers, not scientists, but those rare few trained to ask impossible questions. They interviewed Elias for 7 hours straight. Did your ancestors breed something like it? No. Have you ever encountered similar frequencies on Earth? No. Do you feel fear in its presence? Elias had to pause for that one. Not exactly, he finally said. I feel expected. They blinked at that. Expected to do what? I don't know, Elias answered. But I'm starting to think I'm not just reacting to it. I'm part of its design. That single statement changed everything. Within days, the null beast was no longer considered a wild variable. It was reclassified. Morvath class singular adaptive entity. Status, sentient conditional. It was the first time the term had appeared in Helion records. And it came with its own protocol, one that required Elias by name. He was now listed not just as a cadet, not just as a biological variable, but as a required component in containment. The phrase used was mutual responsive agent. He didn't know if that was better or worse than human anomaly. On day 32, it spoke again. Or rather, it tried. The same three-tone name echoed from its core, but this time, a new tone followed. Shorter. Softer. A fourth pulse. Elias froze. He repeated the name, then waited. The creature replied with the full sequence. Name. Then the new tone. He placed his hand gently on the barrier. You're trying to say something new, aren't you? The null beast leaned forward and echoed it again. He tried mimicking the new tone. This time, the creature did something no one expected. It stood on hind limbs and extended one of its forward plates, a motion resembling a handshake. Gasps filled the observation deck. The gesture was clear. It had not been programmed. It had not been forced. The null beast was attempting contact. Cultural contact. The debate escalated beyond the Academy. A week later, the Galactic Sentience Accord demanded oversight. 2 diplomats from the Real Hegemony arrived in orbit. One of them, an aging negotiator with spine neural ridges, asked the question no one else dared. Do you believe it recognizes you as human? He asked Elias in private. I think, Elias said, it doesn't see human the way the rest of you do. I think it sees patterns, energy, recognition signals. The negotiator nodded slowly. And if you are the only one it responds to? Then I stay, Elias said. It will isolate you. It already has. Day 43 brought the breach. Not from the creature, from the outside. A rogue signal, encrypted, origin unknown, penetrated the Academy's defenses during routine comm traffic. Security logs showed a sequence of unauthorized pulses targeting the null beast's frequency. The moment the signal hit, the creature recoiled. It screamed. Its harmonic structure distorted into chaotic sound waves. Every drone monitoring it fried within seconds. Glass ruptured in the upper tiers. Elias was called immediately. By the time he reached the chamber, the null beast was collapsed, plates flickering, leaking some kind of radiant plasma. He crossed the barrier without waiting. Initiate emergency lockdown, someone shouted. Elias dropped to one knee beside the creature. It's okay, he whispered. I'm here. The creature twitched. Its plates surged once, then relaxed. Its tone reformed, broken, warbling. Was it an attack? Elias asked over comms. No known weapon, Pyla replied, her voice shaken. The signal wasn't ours. Elias looked down at the null beast's barely flickering armor. It was a call, he said, from something like it. Varlan's voice broke in. You think another one exists? I think this one just remembered it isn't alone. The following days were chaos. The Galactic Defense Council classified the breach as a Level 5 interspecies threat. If there were more null beasts, and if they could be controlled, corrupted, or unleashed, then containment wasn't just an Academy problem. It was a civilization problem, and at the center of it all stood a single cadet from Earth. The one being in the galaxy who could calm a null beast with a heartbeat. Some wanted Elias removed, isolated, dissected. Others wanted him elevated. One faction even proposed cloning his biopattern. He refused. "I'm not a weapon," Elias said. "Neither is it." And then, quietly, he added, "Maybe we both were made that way, but we get to choose what we are now." On day 50, the null beast rose without prompting. Its body was fully restored. The harmonic tone it emitted was not recognition this time, but direction. It moved to the far side of the chamber and pressed its plated forelimbs against the wall. Then its plating shifted, revealing a set of pulse-laced ridges that glowed faintly. A map. A star path. Coordinates. It was showing Elias something. A location. "Where is that?" Elias asked. Pyla scanned it. Her face went pale. "It's off-grid," she said. "Deep field sector. Completely uninhabited. No records." "Then it's not uninhabited," Elias murmured. "Not to it." The null beast turned and lowered its head. Not as a farewell. As an invitation. The vote passed the next morning. Elias was granted clearance for an expedition. Not military, not academic. A new designation. Cross-species contact liaison. He would leave with a small crew. An observation vessel. No weapons. And the null beast. "You're not going to stop me?" Elias asked Varlon as they stood in the hangar. Varlon looked tired, but not angry. "I stopped believing I understood this weeks ago. What if I don't come back? Then I'll know we were never in control to begin with." They shook hands. A first. Then Elias boarded the vessel. The null beast followed, calmly, without restraint. As the ship lifted from the launch bay and cut into the stars, Elias stood beside the creature in the forward cabin. It didn't speak. Didn't pulse. Just stood quietly beside him, facing the same direction. Waiting. "Whatever's out there," Elias said softly, "I'm not afraid." The null beast tilted its head, plates shimmering in affirmation. Then, just once, it pulsed the name again, its name, and added a fifth harmonic. Elias turned, surprised. It was new. A second name. One meant for him. They were no longer beast and handler. No longer anomaly and experiment. They were something else. And whatever waited out there, forgotten or forbidden, would face them together.